So this week we are working on blocks 10, 11, and 12. Block 10 is designed by Deb Strain. I'll show you a picture of it. Block 11 is designed by Brenda Riddle Designs. And block 12 is designed by CHIC. As in the past few weeks, I think we've done up to 3 weeks, so this is week 4. I'm making 2 of every single block. Like the number 11, I've already cut all my blocks out. Number 11, which is, by Brenda Riddle. I have 2 different colorways picked out. This is my first one. I'll insert a close-up for you. And this is my second one. So I've done them in 2 different colorways. You, to make the quilt, you only need to do 1. But I wanted to be able to show you in these videos what a difference placing a fabric can be and the tone of the color. You know, whether it's a light, a medium, or a dark. And quite honestly, I'm learning so much by doing it this way that I'm really enjoying it. So that's the other reason. So I'm going to start with block 10, then I'll do 11 and then 12. I've already got all my blocks cut out. So as always, the first thing I'm going to do is show you how I go about laying it out to make sure that I've got all my right pieces, and then we will get them sewn together. I have set up my 2 blocks, and this is how I've put this one together. I'm looking at my pink as being my medium, my blue is my dark, and this the background. So what I've done on this block is my darkest value is on the outside, my medium value on the inside, and then my background. On this one, the medium value is on the outside with the darkest kind of inside or in the middle of the block. So I'm going to start by first drawing my lines from corner to corner on the back side of the fabric. Again, as always, I'm using, on this one, I'm using one of my Friction pens, removed by friction. I guess it's friction pens. But anyhow, I'm using one of my pens that it all goes away with the heat. And these I don't mind because I'm actually going to be sewing on the line that I'm drawing, so it really isn't going to be seen through the fabric. And I'm also going to do it on the darker of the 2, only because that's what I felt like doing. Just because that's the one that I picked. So I'm using my little 3.5-inch ruler. I'm telling you, this is one of my staples. It lives by my sewing machine. I do my bindings with it. I do most of my half square triangles. So this is really a great ruler, especially on this project. So I'm just going to draw my line. I was noticing that it was harder for you guys to see my line before because it was lighter. So I changed pens. And I don't know that this one is made. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Now I think you'll be able to see that better. So I'm just going to draw all my lines. And once I draw my lines, I'm going to sew on the line, and then we'll be cutting away the additional fabric. And that's how I'm making my half square triangles, which is per the directions. There are other ways of doing it. You can make half square triangles with things called triangles on a roll, or there is a program called Triangulations CD, and eventually I am going to get a video up on that because I think it's a nice little tool to have around. Makes great half square triangles. You can make them any size that you want to make them, and it does work nice, especially if you're anything like me and you can be known to be in your sewing room working on a project at 10 or 11 o'clock at night when there aren't any stores open and you don't have the right size triangles on a roll. So I will show you that video. It's just, I can't do it right now. So as soon as I can get to that one, I will. But anyhow, I am drawing my line and, oh, I'm sorry, I'm off. So I'm drawing my line. You can see, well, I'll move this up so that you can see. I think now you can see. On my ruler, this again is my 3.5 inch ruler. It's my favorite little ruler. It lives right next to me on my sewing machine. I use the diagonal line here to line up on the edge of my block. And then I use the points and I go from one corner, I'm off just a little bit, from one corner to the next. And I just lightly draw a line. Now on this block, that's going to be my stitching line. So I'm gonna start stitching and once I get done stitching all of them, I'll show you where I'm at so that you know what to do next. All right, I've got my blocks laid out again. I pressed my seams to the darker of the two fabrics. And you can see I, again, have all this excess here. And once again, I'm just gonna clip it off with my scissors. I'm not gonna, I could go over and measure it or take this ruler out, this little one with a cutting mat, and make sure that I was exactly a quarter, but it's a seam and I'm okay with that. I get fussy about some things, but that's not something that I'm really all that fussy about. Maybe I should be, but I'm just not. So I'm gonna trim all of these, and you can see that I've laid them out as I try to always do in a 9-patch sequence so that I can sew them together the most efficient and the quickest way. This is a fast block. This is nothing compared to one of the other ones we've done. So with this block, I'm going to sew these two, then these two, then these two. Then I will sew this one on, and this one on, and this one on. Then I'll go and press it. I'll press this row into the center, this row out, and this row in. And then I'll be able to join all three of them together. So I'll be back to show you these blocks when they are totally put together. I've got my rows all pressed, and I want to show you how I pin this one, because I think that's important. Sometimes you gotta pin and sometimes you don't. I like to pin whenever I'm putting rows together or things that will make it easier. So here's the back side of my 3 pieces. And I think you can see it. Oh, let me bring it this way a little bit. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with my first row. I'm gonna take my 2 pieces and I'm going to bring them as close together as I can just by feel. Once I've got them pretty close together, then I'm gonna start lining things up. So I'm gonna line up this one and I'm gonna stick a pin. Then I'm gonna come back to my center. When I get back to my center, I'm gonna stick a pin down here, and then I can fold it over. And can you see my fold just nestles together really easily and nicely. So now I'm gonna fold that back. And then I'm gonna stick a straight pin, that was a back one, in on this side. And then if I have to do extra protection to my seams to make sure that nothing moves, I would put another one on this side of the seam. And I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna nestle these 2 together, line them up, and you can really feel that. You can feel when they're in all nice and close. Stick a pin in this one again, just so that I can fold it back and see. And once again, my seams are matching up pretty nice. I'm gonna take a pin and stick it in here. Now on this one, because I want to make sure it doesn't move. I'm going to stick another pin in here. But on this one, when I'm sewing, I'm going to sew down this way. Well, I like it when my seam, the fold of the seam, goes into the presser foot this way, like this, because then it pushes the two together. On this one, that's not going to happen because I'm going with my seam. So I'm going to take this spare pin out. I'm going to work this together a little bit better. And then I'm going to stick my pin in on this side. So now what's going to happen is that's really going to, sorry about that, it's really going to safely keep those pieces right in place. And I'm going to do that, sew it all together and press it and show you the finished block. My first 2 blocks for week 4 are done. Again, this is block number 10. And this one is designed by Deb Strain, which I have to agree, I love Deb Strain's thing. Okay, so now on to block 11. Block 11 has a lot more little pieces. So anyhow, we're on to block 11. I'm going to get it laid out and then I'll show you. This one's going to take a few more steps, so we're going to be talking a lot through this one. This next block of ours is a little complicated. I'm going to be really honest with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down into steps, and we're going to do 1 block, and that's all I'm going to concentrate on. With my second block sitting here, and I'll work on that one behind the camera without filming it. But this first one we're going to do step by step by step. All right, so this is what we're going to do. The very first thing that we're going to tackle is the flying geese. We've done flying geese. They're not difficult. We've done them a number of times. So that's where we're going to start. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my little teeny tiny squares, and I'm going to do what I always do on my flying geese. I'm going to grab my little ruler, and I'm going to draw from corner to corner, and that's going to be basically my stitching line. As always, I'm going to stitch 1 thread in so that when I press this over, I've got a square block. It just works out better because the pressing of the seam over does take up a little bit of bulk, so we want to get rid of that bulk, and how we do that is just stitching it right next to the line. So I'm going to do this on all of my pieces, and then I'm going to sew one side of my flying geese, press them, then sew the second side. So here you can see I've drawn on my first block, and I'll turn it around to face you. This is the first step of my flying geese, so I'm going to sew right there. I do that on all 4 of my pieces. I'm going to press them, then I'm going to come back and show you what they look like, okay? All right, the first half of my flying geese, where's my 4th one? Nope, here it is. So the first half of my flying geese are done. So now I'm going to take my second half, which I've already drawn my line on, and I'm going to place them right over this. I'm going to take it back to the sewing machine, and I'm going to now sew it, and I'm going to show you what direction. I'm going to sew this one from here to here, because that is such an amount of bulk right there. I want that going through my sewing machine last. Okay? So I'll come back when I get those done. All right, so now we can see my flying geese are sewn together. I always try to take a block and get it down to its most basic, which is a 9 patch. So what I want to do next is I'm going to sew these 2 together, these 2, and these 2. And then my 4 center blocks are a 9 patch, and they're ready to go. Once I've sewn those together, we're gonna tackle this one next. And this one is a little bit different, but it's a great block and it's easy to do. So, sew these 4 together, then I'll come back and show you how we're gonna do that one. All right, so here's the center section, and I've pressed it out to the part with the most open. Remember, you always try to press away from where there's bulky seams. So my next step is this little corner block. I'll show you on the pattern. This little corner block right here, where you've got a triangle, and then you've got a triangle made up of 2 small triangles and 1 square. So this is how we're gonna do it according to this pattern. The first thing I'm gonna do is I've got a little rotary cutter and a little mat that I keep close to my sewing machine. And I'm gonna and the first thing I have to do is cut the larger square in half, okay? It's not the half square triangle or the 2.5 inch. It's the smaller block. This is the 1 7/8 inch block cut in half. Now, I'm gonna sneeze. This is my 1 7/8 inch block. So that's the next thing that we're gonna do. We're gonna take the bigger block of it and I'm gonna cut it in half. Now, the pattern calls for a 1 7/8 inch block cut in half diagonally. I did it 2 inches, and there was a reason for it, because when I get this portion of my blocks put together, I want to trim it up, okay? This isn't a block I've done a lot, so I've purposely left this a little bit bigger so that if I need to, I can square it up later. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is cut this little block in half, okay? Lock back on, and it's apart. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my square, here's my square, and I'm going to lay it out. I'm going to put it on point so that I can see roughly what this is going to look like. And remember, I'm a little bit bigger, but I did it on purpose. All right, so there's my triangle. I'm going to sew this together. I'm looking to see if it tells me what size it is. It doesn't really tell me what size it is. But anyhow, I'm going to sew this together. I'll start by taking this piece, laying it across there, and I'll sew from here to here. Do that on all 4 blocks. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to press it open. Then I'm going to sew this piece on. So once I've got all of these pieces sewn and pressed open, I'll show them to you before I attach the next section. My 4 pieces are sewn with the triangles, and I've pressed them open. I pressed it towards the triangle, not towards the square. So my next step is I need this to look like it's on point. So boom, on point. See how that just twisted it? And then my next piece is going to lay like this. Now remember, I cut my piece a little bit bigger, and I know I did. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line it up here. I'm gonna sew from here right straight down to here. Gonna do it on all 8 of the pieces, and then I'll be back to show you what they look like. And we're gonna have to trim them up. Here's the block. And it honestly is going together easier than I thought it was going to. Let's get it all laid out. Okay, here's the block. These 4 pieces here actually sit right here, okay? Now remember, I made them a little oversized. So our next step is we need to attach these. Now, according to the directions, you can draw a line from point to point. You're gonna line these blocks right up, okay? Now, normally I would want to sew on this side because I wanna look for this little point right here so I don't lose my flying geese. But my lines on this side, there's not as many seams. You know, it might sew easier on this side. So let's say you've decided that this really is the side you want to sew on, but you don't want to lose your point. You want that flying geese point right there, or this half square triangle. I'm not sure what it's called. But anyhow, you want that block to show up. So what I would do is I would pin it, and I know it's a little teeny tiny block to pin, but I would pin it on both sides, making certain that, you know, you're nice and flat. Air pinning's probably not a good idea. Okay, so I've pinned it, but I still want to make sure that I don't lose my point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I'm going to stick a pin right down in that point there. I'm going to pull it over and look at where I am. I'm just right next to my line. So by the time, if I sew on my line, by the time I've pressed this open, I should have a perfectly good point. So I'm going to do that on all of my blocks here. And then I will be back to show you what they look like. I feel like I'm telling you a lot that I'm going to come back. But I always do, so hang with me and we'll see what this block looks like. And then we've got one more to tackle. And the next one is, looks like it's just about all flying geese. It's 2, 4, 6, 8 flying geese and then some squares. So that one will be easy to tackle too, because we are getting to be pros at flying geese. So I'll be back in a few minutes to show you how I managed to get this block to a straight 9-piece. We'll put it all together and then we'll move on to the next. I am now down to the basic 4-patch. One more piece. All right. Now, isn't that absolutely positively adorable? I think it's going to be. So as always, I'm going to sew these 2, then these 2, then these 2, then these, and these. And there's my 4-patch. Once I've done that with both of the blocks, I'll be back to show you what it looks like all put together and which way I press the seams. Here are my 2 blocks finished. And I pressed them differently. I pressed this one, the center out. I pressed this one with the center in. And quite honestly, I think it lays better out, but I think it's up to you. So either way you want to press that middle seam, you go right ahead. Either way, I think works just fine. Our last block this week is from CHIC, and this is how I've done it. Now, let's go through the construction of this one. Turn the paper so I can see it, I guess. These are simple. It's a 3-patch that goes into a square. So I will be sewing these 2 together and then adding it to here. Remember, I'm always taking my blocks down to a 9-patch. Same thing here, I'll be sewing these 2 together and then adding it to this. So I'm going to do that with all of my 4 corners. Now these are all flying geese. So I'll be doing them the way I've done all my flying geese. Be drawing a diagonal line, sewing them on one side of all 8 of them, right? 2, 4, 6, 8 of them. Then pressing them, trimming them, and then sewing the other side of the geese on the other side. Then I will have a basic 9-patch and be sewing it all together. So this one's a really straightforward one this week. Lots of little pieces, but nothing difficult because we've already really mastered the flying geese, and that's mostly what this one is made up of. So we'll be back probably when we've got this one to the point, only because I think at this point you guys are pretty comfortable with the flying geese. If you're not, please let me know in the comments below and I'll do next week's video, I'm sure there's flying geese in it again, because we've had flying geese every week. And I'll go through detail again on another one, or you can look back at the other videos I've taped for that. So I'll be back. Alrighty, block number 12, which is designed by CHIC, is now done. Wait till you see these. They're adorable. Look at this. Aren't they the cutest little blocks? Show you how I pressed them. I found that the best way to press them was to press the centers open, but I want you to see this little corner block, which is this one right here. This one, I tried pressing it first towards the biggest fabric that didn't have the most seams in it, and what ended up happening was I had a difficult time lining this seam up, so I ended up having to press that one in. So a little bit of a glitch there, but it works out better this way. So here we go. Oh, I got threads. I've always got a couple of threads hanging out. All right, well, I'll have to get that one later. So here is block 12, all done. I hope you enjoyed blocks 10, 11, and 12. This week, block 10 was by Deb Strain. And here's the second colorway. And here they are together. Block 11 was designed by Brenda Riddle Designs. Brenda has done some really gorgeous quilts lately. In fact, I have one of her kits that is just, it's gorgeous. But anyhow, here's the first block. And here's the second block. And here they are together. This block was a little challenging. There were a lot of little pieces, but I think that it came out really, really cute. I'm really happy with it. And then number 12 was designed by CHIC. And this is another one that had a lot of little pieces. Here's block 1. And then block 2. And then here they are together. So at this point, you should, if you're sewing with me, have 12 blocks. I actually have 24 because I'm doing 2 of each. Now, the quilt at the end only requires 1 of every block, but remember, I'm doing 2 of them because I want you to see the difference. I mean, look at these 2 blocks together and look at what a difference putting the darks and lights in different spots make. I just think it makes a ton of difference, and I like being able to see it. So you should be at 12 blocks. Next week will be 13, 14, and 15. I haven't even taken a look at them yet to see what they look like. If you're sewing along with me, I would love to see pictures of your blocks. These are real kind of country, so I know if we did brights, they'd look totally different. But anyhow, I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly have. Remember to, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe to me. And don't forget to go out to my website and grab your free patterns before they're gone. I've put up the setting pattern now, and weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4 are there. So you can see what their design of the quilt looks like at the end, plus you can get all of the free blocks. As I said last week, I don't believe I'm going to finish my quilt the way they did, so you'll have another option. Although I like it, I'm not 100% thrilled with it. I think maybe we could do something a little bit different. So that's where we're at. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.